Photosynthesis is often described in one sentence: plants use sunlight to make food. Accurate, but far too small for what this process really does. Photosynthesis is a planetary-scale energy conversion system. It takes incoming light energy, captures it with specialized pigments, and stores that energy in organic molecules that cells can use later. In practical terms, it turns sunlight into chemical bonds. Those bonds become sugars, starches, cellulose, and eventually the fuel that supports food webs across land and ocean. Even organisms that never perform photosynthesis depend on it indirectly because they eat photosynthetic organisms or organisms that ate them. This is why photosynthesis is not just a plant topic. It is an energy architecture for life itself. When we ask where biological energy comes from in most ecosystems, the answer begins with photosynthesis. Most people are introduced to photosynthesis through plants, but the process spans multiple groups of organisms. Major oxygen-producing photosynthesizers include plants, algae, and cyanobacteria. What links them is not appearance but function. They carry photopigments and can use light to drive cellular chemistry. In plants and algae, pigments such as chlorophyll are organized inside chloroplasts. In cyanobacteria, photosynthetic machinery is embedded in membranes of the cell itself. This diversity matters because it shows evolution solving the same energy problem in different body plans. A tree leaf, a floating alga, and a microscopic cyanobacterium can all perform related photochemistry, yet they occupy completely different ecological roles. Together they account for a massive fraction of global primary production, meaning they manufacture the organic matter that underpins nearly every complex ecosystem. The best-known form is oxygenic photosynthesis, and its defining feature is the source of electrons, water. Light energy is used to remove electrons from water molecules, a step sometimes called water splitting. Oxygen gas is released as a byproduct, while the extracted electrons and hydrogen equivalents are routed into energy-carrying molecules. This detail is crucial because it explains why Earth's oxygen-rich atmosphere is biologically maintained. Oxygen in air is not just a static background gas, it is continuously regenerated by photosynthetic activity. Over long timescales, this transformed planetary chemistry and enabled aerobic metabolism, which yields high energy from respiration. So oxygenic photosynthesis is doing two linked jobs at once: storing energy in reduced carbon compounds and replenishing atmospheric oxygen. The process is therefore central to both metabolism and atmospheric stability. At the cellular level, photosynthesis starts when photons are absorbed by reaction centers, protein complexes packed with pigments. Chlorophyll is especially important in many oxygenic systems because it absorbs light most strongly in red and blue wavelengths and reflects green, which is why many plants look green to us. Absorption excites electrons, and that excitation is converted into controlled electron transfer through membrane-bound chains. This is not random chemistry. It is highly organized molecular engineering. Pigments harvest light, protein scaffolds direct energy flow, and redox carriers route electrons with precise timing. The immediate purpose is to convert short-lived excitation energy into stable chemical currencies the cell can spend. Without this conversion step, absorbed light would mostly dissipate as heat. Reaction centers therefore function as the gateway from physics to biochemistry, where electromagnetic energy becomes usable metabolic potential. Two key outputs of the light-dependent phase are ATP and NADPH. ATP is often called the energy currency of the cell because it can directly power many cellular tasks by transferring phosphate groups. NADPH is a reducing agent, meaning it carries high-energy electrons needed for biosynthesis. Think of ATP as spendable energy and NADPH as chemical reducing power. Both are produced using electron flow initiated by light capture. As electrons move through transport components, proton gradients are established across membranes, and these gradients drive ATP synthesis through ATP synthase. Meanwhile, electrons are transferred to generate NADPH. This paired production is elegant because carbon fixation requires both ingredients, energy input and reducing equivalents. If a cell had ATP without NADPH, or NADPH without ATP, sugar synthesis would stall. Photosynthesis solves this by generating the two in coordinated fashion during the light-dependent stage. After light-dependent reactions generate ATP and NADPH, many photosynthetic organisms run light-independent carbon fixation pathways, with the Calvin cycle being the most familiar. Light-independent does not mean unnecessary light overall, it means these specific reactions do not directly absorb photons. In the Calvin cycle, carbon dioxide from the atmosphere is incorporated into existing organic acceptor molecules such as ribulose bisphosphate. Through a sequence of enzyme-mediated transformations, ATP supplies energy and NADPH supplies electrons to reduce carbon intermediates into carbohydrate precursors. Some products are used to regenerate the starting acceptor, allowing the cycle to continue, while others are diverted toward sugars like glucose. This is where inorganic carbon becomes biological material. The cycle therefore links atmospheric chemistry to biomass creation, converting diffuse CO2 into structured molecules that can be stored, transported, or built into cellular architecture. The sugars produced through photosynthetic carbon fixation are not an endpoint, they are a metabolic hub. Cells can use them immediately for energy via cellular respiration, convert them into starch for storage, polymerize them into cellulose for structural support, or channel carbon skeletons into amino acids, lipids, and other molecules. This flexibility explains why photosynthesis supports both growth and survival. During favorable conditions, organisms can store excess fixed carbon. During stress or darkness, they can mobilize reserves and keep metabolism running. At ecosystem scale, this stored and transferred carbon feeds herbivores, decomposers, and predators. In other words, photosynthesis does not merely create sugar molecules in isolated cells, it creates the carbon and energy flow that moves through entire trophic networks. The process is foundational not because it is chemically elegant, though it is, but because it continuously builds usable biological matter. Not all photosynthesis releases oxygen. Anoxygenic photosynthesis uses different electron donors, such as hydrogen sulfide, and can produce sulfur instead of oxygen. Certain bacteria, including purple bacteria, use bacteria chlorophyll pigments adapted to their ecological niches. Functionally, these organisms still capture light and convert energy, but their redox inputs and byproducts differ from oxygenic systems. This distinction is important for understanding both modern microbial ecology and ancient Earth conditions. In environments with little oxygen and abundant reduced sulfur compounds, anoxygenic pathways can be advantageous. They demonstrate that photosynthesis is a family of solutions rather than a single universal mechanism. By comparing oxygenic and anoxygenic systems, we learn that light-driven energy conversion evolved multiple times with different chemical strategies, each tuned to available resources and environmental constraints. Some archaea, such as Halobacterium, illustrate an even more distinct light-driven strategy. Instead of chlorophyll-centered carbon fixation machinery, they can use retinol-based pigments, including microbial rhodopsins, to absorb light and generate proton gradients across membranes. Those gradients then drive ATP synthesis. In this mode, light is still used to produce cellular energy, but the pathway is simpler and may not involve direct carbon fixation in the way classical photosynthesis does. Studying these systems broadens our definition of phototrophy and helps reconstruct evolutionary possibilities on early Earth. If simple pigment proton systems appeared before complex chlorophyll-based photosystems, they may represent transitional energy strategies in ancient biospheres. Whether or not they were direct ancestors of later oxygenic systems, they show that life repeatedly exploited light as an energy source using different molecular toolkits. From an evolutionary perspective, photosynthesis changed the trajectory of life. Early phototrophs likely used reductants like hydrogen or hydrogen sulfide before water-splitting oxygenic systems became dominant. The rise of cyanobacteria and sustained oxygen release contributed to major atmospheric oxygenation events. Increased oxygen enabled widespread aerobic respiration, which yields far more usable energy per molecule of fuel than many anaerobic pathways. That energetic expansion supported greater biological complexity over time. So when we discuss the evolution of complex multicellular life, photosynthesis sits upstream as a key enabling process. It altered redox landscapes, mineral cycles, and ecological possibilities. The atmosphere we breathe, the metabolic strategies common in animals, and the long-term carbon cycle were all reshaped by photosynthetic innovation and persistence. In that sense, photosynthesis is not only a metabolic process but an evolutionary force. The scale of photosynthesis today is enormous. Global photosynthesis captures energy at an average rate on the order of about 130 terawatts, far beyond human civilization's total power use. It also fixes roughly 100 to 115 billion tons of carbon into biomass each year. These numbers are not trivia, they quantify the throughput of Earth's biological engine. Every forest, grassland, algal bloom, and cyanobacterial community contributes to this distributed conversion network. Climate, nutrient availability, water, and temperature all influence how efficiently that network runs in different regions and seasons. Because photosynthesis governs primary production and carbon uptake, it is deeply tied to food security, ecosystem resilience, and climate dynamics. Understanding photosynthesis therefore has practical relevance beyond biology classrooms. It informs agriculture, carbon cycle modeling, conservation strategy, and any serious conversation about planetary habitability. Historically, scientific understanding of photosynthesis developed through careful experimentation. In the late 18th century, Jan Ingenhousz demonstrated that plants require light, not just soil and water, to produce oxygenic effects. That shifted interpretation from passive growth to active light-driven chemistry. Since then, research has resolved pigments, electron transport, ATP synthesis, carbon fixation pathways, and evolutionary variants across domains of life. Yet the core insight remains remarkably intuitive. Life found a way to capture sunlight and bank it as chemistry. If you take one idea from this explainer, let it be this: photosynthesis is the bridge between incoming solar energy and the living structures around us. Leaves, plankton, microbial mats, woody food, and atmospheric oxygen are all downstream expressions of that bridge. To understand life on Earth at system level, you have to understand photosynthesis. If you found this helpful, please like this video and subscribe for more explainers.